Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Super Mario Bros. Wonder. We have a bit of a longer part today because it's the end of World 4, so huzzah for that. Daisy got a lot of screen time this playthrough.
Well, makes up for the 25 mainline Mario games she's not even mentioned in, so, uh, think that's alright.
Yeah, I guess so.
For anybody who's gonna be pedantic enough, I don't know if it's actually 25, and I don't care.
Can I say, like, I do generally like the dress colors that Peach has, but purple and yellow, I don't know.
This is for the bubble power-up, I believe. I'm not a huge fan of any of the colorations for the bubble power-up, but, I just think it's because they tend to go for the purple motif, which doesn't really work for many of them, but that's just me.
I think they went with purple because it's no one's primary color, so...
Yeah, that's true. Which is weird, because purple is my favorite color, like, just in general, but,
It's
just...
Waluigi's primary color.
You do not speak that name there, Mr.
Wow, okay. Giant pufferfish in the sky.
Big blue, yep.
I like these guys. They're relatively, like, simple mechanic, but it's a neat execution on the, like, super bouncy platforms that I hadn't really seen before, so I just think they're neat.
I like the idea of them expelling air every time you land on them so that they get a little smaller.
There's a lot of neat platforming with them in the later levels. Like, a lot of the secret levels have something neat going on with them, which I really appreciate. Like, they'll do more with having them at weird angles like this. Because I think this is actually the end.
I think it does kind of like...
Oh, I missed.
Is that the last?
Oh, I missed.
It does kind of like... It is a little less interesting when you only have to bounce on each particular balloonfish once. You know?
Yeah, they definitely do a lot. That's just one of the things about this game is they do a lot of interesting things with the with each individual mechanic. I believe these guys get brought back a fair bit in some of the special world stages, but I haven't played this game in a couple months. My memory could be faltering here a little bit. So this is actually something that I was thinking about, and it was something that, like, I always kind of knew about Mario, but didn't really think a lot about until I played this game. Mario courses tend to be fairly short for what they are in comparison to most other 2D platformers. I'm thinking of, like, most other 2D platformers, stages go generally a good bit longer. Like your typical Mario stage can be done in 2 minutes. And, your typical Kirby stage, Sonic stage might go on for 5 or 6. Other platformers, like, say, Wario, they can be an awful lot longer, like 10 minutes or more. Does that, like, ever bother you guys in Mario, where it's just like it feels like the level ends before it really gets going? This game, I don't have too much problem with that, but it definitely is a thing that I noticed a lot in, like, Mario 3, for instance, where the stage is just kind of over, and it's like, well, what even happened here?
Well, old games like that tend to be due to file sizes more than anything. They can only have so many sprites on screen.
Yeah, that is a thing that... I've been playing a lot of Castlevania lately, as you guys know.
Oh yeah, Castlevania stages feel longer than they often are because they're so hard and you die a lot.
Yeah, but, like, going back to, like, 8-bit Castlevania 1, the levels are really short. And then you play something like Castlevania 4 or Chronicles, which are both remakes and reimaginings of that specific game, and the stages can go on forever by comparison. It really is just a space thing. They can't really have as much going on all at once.
I feel like stylistically, though, Mario generally has tended to stay closer to what it did on the NES. Like, the stages are definitely longer than the original Super Mario Brothers, as an example. But, like, I would say that since, like, Mario World, the stages have kept roughly the same length. If anything, Mario World might even have slightly longer stages in some instances than some of the new games, just for a quick comparison.
A little bit, yeah.
And just because we just did like a 45-second level right here, I just want to clarify that I'm talking about main stages, not like stages like the mini challenge stages in Wonder. I'm talking about like the expected full length levels that you main levels that you go through throughout the game.
Yes. So, whose mad genius idea was it to create a badge in this game that turns the character invisible?
Some asshole, because the invisibility section in the final area of the game sucks, and I hate it, and it's dumb and bad and dumb. I do think it's neat to add badges to make the game harder, especially considering that for the most part the game's fairly easy. I just wish that they had some more interesting ways to do it, as opposed to you can't fucking stop, or you can't stop jumping, or you can't see whatever the hell you're doing. Because I don't find any of the challenge badges in this game to be particularly fun to use, just frustrating.
Yeah, and you know, that kind of thing can be neat when done well. Like, extending off my Castlevania kick, I was just playing a Castlevania 1 Metroidvania remake, fan remake, called Revamped. It's really good.
I get it, because vampires.
Yeah. And it has a card equipment system, and one of the cards that you can get for cheap early on in the game is a risk reward trade-off that causes you to die in one hit no matter what hits you. But while you're wearing it, enemies drop a ton more money.
That is interesting.
That is a cool thing to have. I like it.
You can turn it on and off, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you can take it on and put it on and put it off. It's
Did you do that one on purpose, Ryan?
Yes, I did, because I missed the coin.
But here's the rub. You can only equip the thing at a save point. So,
you see, that is interesting, because it's something there to make it so that grinding for money is easier, but it also means that you can't be entirely mindless while you do so. Because if you're too greedy and you don't save every once in a while, you're down an hour's worth of grinding.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do they have anything like that in the other, like the mainline 2D Metroidvanias?
The other Igavanias?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
Because that's one thing about those games that I never really liked, was the grinding. I never found it particularly interesting. And thankfully, you never really have to do it. But, like, if you want something cool, you often will. Like, I think the only time you might ever really need to grind is the...
Donna, the Aria of Sorrow good ending.
Yeah, because you need, like, the Chimera or whatever. You need one of the ones that turns you into a monster so you can rush through the waterfall at that one point.
What you need is, I think, 3 specific souls to equip.
Oh, right, for Dracula, yeah.
Yeah, you need Succubus, you need...
One of them only drops from a specific enemy that spawns in one specific location, so you kind of just have to grind that one enemy until you get it.
If I remember correctly, like, the game does give you... It's not cryptic in that the game will tell you how to do it if you find, like, the hidden books all over the place.
Well, it gives you cryptic hints about what souls you need.
Yeah, but I did figure it out on my first playthrough.
Yeah.
Is the thing. Because I actually have a I have a Let's Play on my first playthrough of Aria Sorrow, and I like that game a lot, but I did figure out how to get the good ending on my first try. I don't remember if I, like, just lucked out and happened to get most of the souls I needed the first time through, but I don't remember it being that bad. The game where I remember it was miserable was Dawn of Sorrow, because everything sucks until you grind for souls to make it better. And no.
Yeah.
And nobody drops any good weapons, and you never find any good weapons either, as I remember.
Thankfully, they got the grinding for soul upgrades aspect a bit better in Bloodstained.
Yeah, no, I don't remember ever really feeling like I needed to grind at all in Bloodstained. I remember the upgrades, like, coming fairly frequently, so that it didn't ever feel like, oh, I should stand here for 15 minutes and wait until I get all the soul upgrades for this particular ability.
Well, the shards in Bloodstained have two different, like, upgrade systems going on at the same time. One is just, like, items that you find that you can use alchemy to upgrade their rank with. I think it's their rank. There's a rank and a grade. It's very confusing. But, like, you can upgrade your souls, like, through alchemy, and then you also get upgrades for having duplicates. It's very strange.
It's been a while since I played Bloodstained, although I do think the game's fantastic. And I should probably play it again at some point.
They just added Classic Mode 2. Which
Classic Mode 2?
It's based on Simon's Quest. And it has, like, new story stuff. You play as Dominique in, a post-game story that's formatted based on Simon's Quest. It's a very strange, out-of-left-field addition, but the funny thing is, John accidentally predicted it in his spotlight on the first Classic Mode. He said something like a Classic Mode based on Simon's Quest wouldn't be a bad idea. And it's just like... he's not here to speak for himself right now, but...
I'm just still baffled at the referencing Simon's Quest unironically in the year 2024.
Well, the thing is, Simon's Quest is actually kind of okay. The big problem is, they borked the translation horribly, like, irreparably, to the point where some of the characters that were supposed to give you actual hints give you, like, incorrect hints that send you in completely the wrong direction. And other characters who are supposed to tell you clearly what to do no longer do. And just say something absurd about, like, a laurel and a curse that killed a tree.
Yeah, but it's a dumb game made for kids, so it doesn't matter, right? Yeah.
Well, if you play the game with a retranslation ROM, it's actually pretty good. Like, it's still got issues. Big ones, but it's enjoyable, is what I'm saying. Okay. You can actually get into it. Also, the Japanese version came with a map, which certainly helps.
That is true. I feel like a lot of cryptic classic NES games are remembered much more fondly than they... I don't want to say deserve, because that's a little mean-spirited, but... Like, for example, if you were like me and the first time you played Zelda 1 was on the Wii Virtual Console, game sucks and is terrible because it doesn't come with a map, and you basically need a map in order to play the fucking game.
Don't they have, like, instruction manuals and stuff in, like,
not
menus?
on the Wii version. I think they might have had a thing that's like, this is an Octorok or whatever, but it didn't come with the full map that detailed where everything was, like, on the NES version. Because that thing was huge. I believe it was the Wii U, the Wii U Virtual Console. You know, the Wii U is not a very good console, and I will, even though we're at the point where, you know, Wii U nostalgia and the Wii U was actually good.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. I'm sorry.
It wasn't a particularly good console, but it did have a nice library of downloadable retro games attached to it.
The Virtual Console on Wii U is great. Part of which is they actually put the entire instruction book. The classic instruction books that came with the game that you would have bought back in the day was available very easily, like in the
yes.
pause menu, which is
You
awesome.
know, I feel like it took publishers entirely too long to realize just how important it is to do that, because like the only company I can think of that re-releases old games and right from day one always included the instruction manuals and stuff is GOG. And they go like the complete distance whenever they can as far as that. They'll include PDFs of every single manual, because old PC games used to come with multiple different booklets. It got a bit absurd at times. Every map that was included in PDF format, and also bonus wallpapers and stuff, because why not? They have the key art.
Old PC games were also interesting too, because I know due to old DRM practices, they would often give you a physical thing, like a physical page, and then when you loaded up the game, it would say, put in this code from the book, and you'd have to do that before you could start
Sometimes it got as silly as including a code wheel. And the game would give you a code that you would have to crack on the code wheel to pass the DRM.
Yeah. I mean, for context, this was back in the day where copying and sharing games was literally as easy as hitting Control-C and Control-V and putting it on a new floppy disk.
Yeah.
That was how many games were shared.
It was so prevalent that some games like worked it into their marketing strategy. That's where the term shareware comes from. Doom and Wolfenstein both had special free shareware versions that you had full permission to freely share with your friends. They were like a step above demos because they included a full chapter of the game, but it was only like the first full chapter. You know how like Doom and Wolfenstein are in like 5 frickin' parts that you have to start a new game on separately, right? It was just like a version that included only the first one of those. But it still felt like a full gaming experience because each individual part was like maybe roughly the size of an early Mario game.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of people who remember Doom really fondly who might not have, like, if they were young enough, they might not have even known that there was like well, I guess at the end it says you've beaten the shareware version, mail this thing to our address here to get the full version.
Yeah, there was always like a teaser of the paid version. My grandparents' old ass Windows 1.1 PC had an absurd number of shareware versions just installed all at once, ostensibly for like visiting relatives to kill time with. It was stuff like Jill of the Jungle, not Doom, Wolfenstein, and what else? There was another one. I'm just not remembering what it was. Oh wait, I think it was Tyrion. I mentioned this, that my childhood shooter.
To talk about what's on screen for half a second, we got the Super Mario Brothers 2 Super Jump, which is one of my favorite badges in this game.
Yeah, it's actually like a pretty good move.
Especially in conjunction with the drill power-up, because when you're drilling underground, you're pressing and holding down the crouch button, I should say.
Yeah.
Which still counts as charging the super jump, which is awesome.
This loops right back into my Castlevania tangent, though, because just the other day, I was playing Castlevania Bloodlines, and I played as Eric Lecard for the first time. And imagine my surprise when he had this exact super jump.
Wow.
In a Castlevania game.
That seems kind of broken for a Castlevania game, actually.
It does.
Bloodlines is the 3D one. Oh no, Bloodlines is the Genesis one.
Yeah, Bloodlines is the Genesis one that had actual blood and gore in an era where that was like, you know, kind of seen as an edgy thing that only Sega would do.
Yeah.
Well, Nintendo was extremely anti anything adult at the time, so
yeah. If I remember correctly, like in the NES version of Ghosts and Goblins, the crosses on the coffins were changed to onks, from Egyptian mythology. So instead of being sacrilegious to one faith, we're sacrilegious to a different faith. So, you know, I wonder why that's all right.
Because nobody recognizes what an Ankh actually is. But, like, okay, so... well, you know, I was about to go off on a tangent about religion being censored in the vampire series, Castlevania, you know? Where the holy water is a firebomb and crosses can't be shown, and the cross, which is a cross, has to be called the boomerang in the instruction manual. But I'm just you're like, why?
To be fair, they did change the shape to the cross, because I don't think if you threw like a Christian styled cross, that thing would fly like a boomerang, because it's shaped all wonky, you know. Like, I don't know how aerodynamic that thing is.
It's supposed to be like a magical force that you project forward, and in fact, in Lament of Innocence, the other 3D game on the PS2, it's often portrayed that way when you use it, because every sub-weapon has like multiple different effects based on what orb you have equipped, and sometimes it's just like a fucking giant-ass cross that like bursts out of the ground or hovers in front of you. One of the powers is just Sith lightning, except there's a cross shape on impact, which totally makes it not a dark side power.
To bring it back to one thing we just did in the game, though, I love that Sunshine is now old enough to have its own nostalgia level.
I don't love that.
It's had a few lately, hasn't it? Not even just lately.
There's Sunshine nostalgia in Splatoon 3, which is weird.
Let's see. We had the Sunshine rotating blocks level in Galaxy 2, I think. We had
that was only... It's weird to think, but that was only, like... Oh, no. Galaxy 2 was, like, 10 years after Sunshine came out. Ow! My back! Ah!
We're 2 generations ahead of that game, you know. They really need to re-release Galaxy 2.
I do find it strange that they didn't do it in the 3D All-Stars pack, because, like, it was right there. Clearly they could do Galaxy 1, so I don't understand why they didn't do Galaxy 2, unless if they just thought that they could get more money by releasing it later. But if they thought they could get more money by releasing it later, they surely would have done that by now, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
I think the last time we had a Galaxy 2 release was on the Virtual Console for the Wii U, right?
Yeah, and that was like in 2016 or something like that.
It was pretty late into the generation, I remember that.
Yeah. There were like 5 or 6 Wii games that got released on Wii U for downloadable play. Not a lot, which is weird that they bothered doing it in the first place. It's like Rhythm Heaven, Metroid Prime, Mario Galaxy 2, Trauma Center, weirdly.
Xenoblade Chronicles got one.
Xenoblade Chronicles at the very least made sense, because at that point it still was a fairly hard game to get your hands on. And I believe that might have been before the 3DS version came out, but I don't think anybody really wants to play that game
Oddly,
on 3DS.
I think it was either around the same time or after the 3DS version.
I'll take your word for it. I don't really remember all that well.
I remember buying it, but I bought it while the 3DS version existed, and I don't remember waiting too long to get it after it was released, so...
Yeah. I mean, now that there's a Switch remaster where the graphics are finally good enough to match the art style that they were going for, that was always my biggest issue with Xenoblade. Aside from the game feeling a little bloated, because I only ever played about half of it. My biggest issue with all 3 of the Rainfall games, actually, is that they all had beautiful art styles that couldn't be fully capitalized because they were on the Wii. And they were all, like, the sort of, like, semi-realistic, semi-anime fantasy styles that just craved for a bit more detail than the Wii could do. So the fact that it's available on Switch now, you can actually see the game as I feel like you were always intended to.
That was kind of part of the reason I was so miffed when Xenoblade 2 came out on the Switch. And it was like, yeah, we finally have the hardware to realize that art style we had in the previous game. So what do? Well, we just switched to the most boring generic anime art style instead.
Do you know the story behind Xenoblade 2 and its development? Um, there's
No.
so I'm gonna butcher this because Kevin the Golden Bolt told me a bunch about it. So to make a long story short, Monolith Soft, the developers of Xenoblade, effectively are the reason why Breath of the Wild is a good game. Because they had to tell Nintendo, no, put a fucking jump button in. No, you, why? How did you make video games this entire time? So they spent the entire development cycle of Breath of the Wild basically helping Nintendo make that game be awesome. And then they finish, and Nintendo's like, great job, guys. Way to go. We need Xenoblade 2 by Christmas. So a lot of stuff in it was very rushed. With that said, yeah, the character designs and like the general story beats from what I've seen of Xenoblade 2 just don't interest me. I'm sure that the gameplay is good. Like, I'm sure that it's got its redeeming moments. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as popular as it is. But it's one of those this isn't for me kind of games for sure.
That's being the franchise in general. I just can't get into it.
I'll tell you what is for me. That boss fight. That was actually a pretty good one.
It's better. It's one of the, like, actually, the water makes it more interesting to dodge his moves, but it is still effectively the same Bowser Jr. fight we did twice already.
Well, that's fine. It's like, it's okay to have a basic bitch boss fight that's built around the main character having an interesting maneuvering situation to deal with. I feel like if Mario leaned into that more often, they'd have a more interesting roster of boss fights.
I feel like one of the things is, it's always the same character, or the character doesn't feel different enough to matter. Like, that's always been the big thing about Bowser Jr. and the Koopalings, is that the fights get repetitive because it feels like you're fighting the same dude over and over again. And the moves feel very similar. I do agree in that Mario lends itself more towards the idea, at the very least, of more like maneuverability, smaller kind of fights, a little bit better than big grandiose ones. I just think that the variety and also the placement as well. One thing that I liked about New Mario DS was that you had the Bowser Jr. levels in the midpoint with the Bowser Jr. fight, and then you had a real boss at the end of the level. So it felt like you had a bigger culmination to cap off everything with. It was something unique and something that you could be a little bit more excited about. Versus it's like, okay, it's the same thing we've done 2 times before. And then there's another one later, and it's like, okay, it's just repetitive, I think, is one of the bigger things. Typical me using 500 words to explain something that you can explain in 2 sentences. Go figure.
Well, I think there is like merit in over-explaining when it comes to games criticism, to be honest, because a lot of the quick explanations are rendered meaningless through overuse by people just throwing words around.
Yeah, it's very easy. Like there's a axiom that the simplest explanation is the best one, which is one of those things that like sounds true because it is in itself one of its own axioms. Like saying, oh yeah, the simplest answer is usually the right one. It sounds like it's something right, but it goes over a lot of nuance. And I think you're right in that, sometimes taking a lot to describe a little has merit. And if it didn't, there wouldn't be 30,000 2-hour essays about random video game from the 90s on YouTube.